Two of the newer innovations in snowboarding today and this year, some of it came out last year, but it's really hit hard this year, are your rocket boards, like the LibTech Skate Banana with magnet traction. Magnet traction means the squiggly edges you might see or may not be able to see. And the other part, and the most dynamic thing, is it has rocker instead of camber. Now what rocker does in a snowboard, it makes it much more forgiving. So you're not really going to catch edges, and I'm not going to say you can't fall on it, but you won't feel that bone-shuddering catching fall. These boards are really forgiving in the park and will hold an edge riding in the back seat, even on a steep groomer. Several of the brands come with this year. Not all of them come with magnet traction. They use their own means for turning, but Never Summer, Rome, all the Libs and Gnu's, the Burton Hero and Condom also have the reverse rocker or reverse camber with or without magnet traction. Burton uses what's called their pressure distribution edges, which is sort of like magnet traction, but not quite as deep. And Never Summer uses rocker camber, which is actually a rocker board with a little bit of camber in the nose and tail to enable you to hold in on steeper, icier hills. The other new innovation this year, actually again it came out last year, is the Burton ICS system. And what it comprises of is a single channel on the boards rather than the traditional Burton 3D pattern that you can mount with the Burton EST bindings that are kind of like a baseless binding. Joe, would you grab me a Burton binding real quick? Excuse me. The new EST binding, it doesn't have the conventional Burton disc. You mount it on either side, and it sits right on the board here, and it gives you an infinite stance width and angle capabilities, and it's more like riding the old baseless bindings. Unlike the old baseless bindings, you have a rubber dampening pad that actually comes out of the binding if you need to, but 95% of the people ride it with the dampening pad, and you get a much better feel for your board. This stuff works. Several of our riders in our store have used it and swear by it, much like the Banana Magnet Traction series and the rocker boards. Another question people have is, what boards are the best for powder? And there's a few boards here that most boards will all work in powder, so don't think if you have a Burton Custom or a LibTech Jamie Lynn that you just have to buy a new one for powder. But some boards work way better in powder than other boards. But unfortunately, some boards, like this Burton Fish here, which is probably the best single board for powder anywhere in the world, will not curve or turn on a groomer. So if I were to get this board, and it is a very popular board, especially for hillboarding enthusiasts and snowcatting enthusiasts, I couldn't turn a carve a turn on a groomer. The problem with this board, you're so far back in the back seat because it's designed for powder only that it's virtually, I don't want to say impossible, but for most riders impossible to carve a turn on it. That's the Burton Fish. Great board in powder though, #1 powder board right here, baby. Next board would be the Burton Malalo. The Burton Malalo takes some of the specifics of the Fish, and they have I believe it's a 3-inch back set, so you have way more nose than tail. Tapered nose, which is a wider nose, and it does extremely well in powder, almost as good as the Fish. The beauty of this board is, this board will also carve a turn on a groomer and a resort. So if I was at, let's say, Mammoth, and it was a powder day at Mammoth, and you were dealing with some hardcore powder in the mountain, hilly parts of the mountain, but on the groomers, it was still groomed, I would rather have a Malalo than a Fish. But if I were out in the backcountry on a helicopter or a snowcat, I think I would rather have the Fish than the Malalo. So for mountain powder riding, I'd go with the Malalo. For backcountry hillboarding and snowcatting, I would go with the Fish. Another board here in the Burton line is the Burton, or I'm sorry, this is a LibTech. This is the LibTech Snow Mullet. This Snow Mullet here is LibTech's version of a powder board, and it works extremely well in powder and extremely well on groomers. The difference with the Malalo is it does have the rocker technology and magnet traction, like the Skate Banana. It's a little stiffer than the Skate Banana, but you sit more in the back seat, back further. This board I would compare more to the Malalo than the fishtail because this board will always carve a turn as well as working good in powder. And by the way, all rocker boards work extremely well in powder, be it the powder specific snow mullet or the new school park skate banana that we already went over. The next board I'd like to speak to is the Burton Supermodel. Now the Burton Supermodel is a board that was actually been in the line for years, and they just brought it back because so many of the people at Burton love it. And it has a bigger nose, just like the Malalo does, but it will carve a turn way better than Malalo. And remember, the Malalo carved a turn way better than the fish. But this board, you can lay down a turn, it's extremely stiff, but you can ride it in the back seat and ride powder like a pro. This is a really good board, one of the most versatile boards in the Burton line. This is one of the new Burton little Tykes boards, and this is a chopper. Some of the new innovations in the chopper this year, it's actually a concave base where the edges are actually rolled up on both sides. It enables the little Grom to not catch edges and to be able to have a lot of fun without getting hurt. Another thing they've done is, in the old school technology, it was hard for a real young rider, 3-4 years old, to work on a snowboard because they were so thick they really couldn't make it work. What they've done now, they've made the boards much thinner and added a rubber dampening pad right in here to accommodate a binding, so the board's way more flexy than it used to be back in the olden days 2 years ago.